The Mixed Faith Relationship Podcast with your host, certified life coach, Chris Rich. Episode 4, Opposition in All Things. Hello, my friends. Welcome. Whether you are driving down the street right now or in the middle of a giant basket of laundry, or if you've got me popped into your ears on your AirPods, thank you for spending this chunk of time with me today. I'm feeling pretty lucky. And speaking of sharing, thank you so much to those of you that have shared this podcast with your people or left me a review. And thank you for those of you that have subscribed to my podcast. You won't miss an episode if you do that. So thank you for sharing the love. I so appreciate it. Although I will be sharing about mixed faith relationships, these tools apply to any relationship and any situation that you're in. And before we get started, a lot of times people ask me, what's the difference between a therapist and a life coach? And this is such a great question. A therapist is a medically trained professional that diagnoses mental illness or works through trauma or other significant life events. Therapy is often focused on the past, and the goal with therapy is to go from dysfunction to function and getting people up to their base level. Thank goodness for all of the fantastic therapists out there. We so appreciate you. Okay, a life coach helps a client that is already functioning at their base level to improve their life and to feel better and to achieve their goals. And it's more present and future focused. So if you're stuck, a life coach will help you recognize where you're stuck and shows you exactly what needs to change when you can't see it for yourself. A life coach helps you to see what is in your control instead of wasting your time trying to change the things out of your control. When we're in mixed faith relationships, we spend so much time trying to change the other people, and it's not helpful. And so a coach can help you see what is in your control. And when we know what's in our control, then we can create the life that we want to create because we can focus on things that we can do. A life coach is like having a best friend that's going to be really honest with you and that will call you out when you're not showing up as your very best self, give you some tough love. And also a life coach will believe in you even before you believe in yourself. A life coach is not a substitute for a medical professional, but a great addition to the team to help you have success. So in addition to coaching on mixed faith relationships and marriages, I coach on general topics as well. And anything's game. Any relationship, self-esteem, weight loss, goal setting, money, health, quitting an unwanted habit, you name it, any area where you're trying to improve your life. Okay, so with that, let's jump into our topic today, opposition in all things. So I want to go back with you quite a few years. When I was 21 years old, I served a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I had the privilege of serving in the Taiwan Taichung mission. And even better, one of my very best friends in the whole world was called to my same mission. So when I got to the mission home, she had left a little note for me, and it was so special. And in that, she gave me a piece of advice that I just loved. And it said, if you're not happy, you're doing it wrong. And I found this advice to be very useful in a lot of different areas. But then as life went on, I don't know about you guys, but my life has not been happy all the time. And the thought that I was doing something wrong wasn't helpful because I was doing my very best. And I came to find out that that piece of advice wasn't useful for me. In fact, it might have been some of the worst advice I've ever been given. And luckily, we're still friends and we joke about that now. There's this idea that we should be happy all the time. And it's a problem that when we're not happy. And so when something comes up in our lives, we freak out because we think, something's wrong. But I just want to share with you that this idea that we should be happy all the time causes us a lot of suffering. And as human beings, we're always chasing happiness. I will be happy when my child comes back to church, or I will be happy when I lose that last 10 pounds, or when summer finally gets here. Substitute, you know what I'm talking about. We do this a lot, that I'll be happy when. You fill in the blank for you. We desperately want there to be more good in our lives than bad. And it totally makes sense. It feels good to feel happy, but we spend so much time trying to eradicate negative emotion. And if you haven't listened to it yet, I highly recommend you go back to my very first episode where I talk about emotions. And I share a lot of great tips on that for what we do when we have emotions, what we can do with our emotions. And some things aren't so good. And there are better options that I teach you about in that episode. So, and I want you to think about it. Like, if you really think about, if you had the option to be happy all the time, is that a good idea? Do we really want to be happy all the time? And I think a lot of times it's like, well, yeah, it feels good to be happy. And don't get me wrong, I am a huge advocate for happiness. I consider myself a pretty happy person. But happiness is not the fuel that we want to take all of our actions with. And what I mean by that, our emotions that we're feeling are the fuel that we take action from. So let's pretend that I'm getting chased by a bear. Well, if happiness is my fuel, it may look like me standing there and smiling at the bear and trying to give him a hug and trying to be his best friend. That might not be a good idea, my friends. Instead of having happiness as my fuel, I want to feel fear. I want to be so scared that my brain sends a message to my body that it's go time and that I want to run. So happiness wouldn't be a great fuel in that situation. Okay, that's kind of a silly example, but let's look at other examples. Let's say that I've got a loved one that's really struggling. I want to be with them. I want to be there with them to support them. And maybe happiness isn't the best fuel there. If someone that I love dies, I want to mourn because I love that person. And mourning is part of the human experience. And I want to be able to feel all of those emotions. And when my loved one comes to me and tells me that they are going through a faith transition, I might not want to be honest, I probably don't feel happy. That might be really hard for me. And I want to feel what's coming up for me. I want to allow those emotions. And if you think about it, if you were happy all the time, people would think you were weird. There's just a lot of times where happiness isn't an appropriate emotion. I like to think of a roller coaster. I love a good roller coaster that has ups and downs and twists and turns and loop-de-loops. That's why a roller coaster is fun. If you were on a roller coaster that was just flat the whole time, I don't think there's going to be a very big line for that. And the human experience is similar. It's those ups and downs that makes it a full experience. In the Book of Mormon, we're taught that there is opposition in all things, even in us with our emotions. And I want to introduce a tool to you today that I absolutely love. And it's the concept of 50-50. It's the balance of positive and negative emotions. So basically what this is half the time I'm going to feel some version of happiness, love, joy, connection, confidence, contentment, emotions that feel pleasant, fantastic. And the other half of the time, I'm going to have emotions that feel terrible and icky, disappointment. I might feel irritated or grief, sadness, worry, loneliness, resentment, disconnection. I'm going to feel those emotions as well. And that, my friend, is the human experience. I'm going to feel all of those emotions in all the different things that I'm going through in my life. And the ones that are yucky, they don't feel good. But if I can learn to accept that those emotions are part of life, then I don't need to be so negative about those negative emotions. I just recognize, like, yeah, this is a time where this is really hard and I'm grieving. And that's okay. I don't need to be negative about that emotion that I'm feeling. So it's just, so 50-50 is just that contrast of emotions that as humans, we're going to feel all of the emotions, and it's okay. I love what my fellow life coach, Jody Moore, has to say. She said, relaxing into the 50-50 experience of life creates more happiness. When I recognize that it's okay to be irritated or to feel disappointed, then I can be okay with that. And then I don't judge myself for having these emotions that come up. That's what being a human is all about. And I love this concept. You can apply it to a lot of different areas. So I look at it with my emotions. Half the time I'm going to feel positive emotions and half the time I'm going to feel negative emotions. But I like to apply it to other situations. For example, I am a 50-50 mom. I would love to be a perfect mom, but I'm not. I'm not a robot. I'm a human. And so part of the time I'm going to mess up. And this isn't to say that I'm not going to try my best, but when I don't show up as my very best self, if I think that I have to be perfect all the time, I'm going to go beat myself up, and I'm probably going to go grab a pint of Ben and Jerry's, and I'm going to hide in my room, and I'm going to disconnect. And if I can remember, like, oh, I'm a human, I messed up, and sometimes I make mistakes, I'm going to act very different. I'm going to have compassion for myself and realize, like, yeah, I messed up and that's not who I want to be. So maybe I go back and apologize to my child, or I don't need to go eat the Ben and Jerry's. I can just realize, like, yeah, sometimes I mess up. I'm a 50-50 wife. Sometimes I show up and do and say all the things that I want to, that I feel really good about. And sometimes I don't. I know when we started on this mixed faith journey, there's a lot of times where I showed up in ways I look at now and I think, oh, I shouldn't have done that. But I can look back on myself and think, like, yeah, I didn't know any better. And it's okay because I'm not perfect. And now I'm learning these things and I can move forward. So I can have grace for myself. And I can look at the other drivers, like sometimes when I'm driving the car, I cut someone off and I didn't mean to, but I don't need to make it mean something terrible about me. I just remember, like, yeah, I'm a human. I just messed up and it's okay. And I'm going to move on from there. So when I can do this for myself and realize that I'm a 50-50 mom or wife or whatever it be, then I can apply this to other people and realize that my kids, half the time they're going to be amazing and show up with kindness and love. And half the time they're not. And it's okay. That's the human experience. My husband, he's a 50-50 husband, just like I am. And all the other humans that we are interacting with, they're 50-50 too. And I can give them that space and grace, which creates a lot more peace in my heart when I don't have to hold them to the expectation of them being perfect. So I can apply it to people. I can also apply 50-50 to my day. And a lot of people get hung up on this equation. It could be something. Some people say, well, no, it's more like 80-20 or it's 20-80. And it depends on the day or the situation. But what I want to offer is, if you look at the human experience as a whole, as a pie chart, if you're looking back at the end of your life, I'm guessing about half of it is going to be positive and half of it's going to be negative. So if I want to apply this to my day, a lot of times at the end of the day, we'll be like, oh, that was the worst day. And then when I look back and really look at the whole thing, there were some parts that were really hard. And there were other parts that were absolutely amazing. And maybe it's not exactly 50-50, but part of my day was amazing and part of it was hard. And then it doesn't seem so, when I am not so negative about the negative parts of life, it helps me to find more happiness. I can look at, so it's summertime and you may be going on a family vacation. I like to plan on things being 50-50, not in a pessimistic way, but just knowing that part of the time it's going to be so fun. And part of the time, it might not be that amazing. Maybe we'll be stuck in traffic or we miss a flight, but that's okay because I don't have the expectation that it's going to be 100% perfect. I have the expectation that it's going to be 50-50. There's going to be ups and downs. And when those downs come, it's okay and I can handle it. So I can be much less negative about the negative when I accept that. And I can learn to roll with the negative. It doesn't floor me when these hard things come up for me because I know that life is 50-50. And I want to throw it out there. I have clients, they don't like this tool and it doesn't work for them. And this is just a tool. If it works for you and you find this helpful, awesome, use it. I love it and it helps me a lot. If it's not your tool, then it's not your tool and don't worry about it. But I love this. This has helped me so much I'm okay with being a 50-50 human because humans aren't perfect. We're not robots. And part of the time we're going to screw up. And also, my heavenly parents, they don't expect me to be perfect. They sent me a savior that is going to atone for the times where I mess up because I'm going to. And it just helps. I find so much compassion for myself when I'm operating from this space. Okay, my friends, I hope that you found this useful. If you have any questions about this, I would love to chat with you about this 50-50 tool or any of the other things that I've shared on my podcast. I would love for you to go check out my website, chrisrichcoaching.com, all one word, and Chris is with a CH. Go check out the things that I have on my website. I've got some great blog posts. I've got my Mixed Faith Friday email where every week I send you a little nugget to your inbox with other great tools. I've always got a different challenge or different videos that you can watch. And it also will direct you to my social media so you can follow me on there. But thank you again for hanging out with me. And I will see you next week on our podcast. Mwah.